County of Los Angeles, talking about the predictive analytics and case segmentation. The speaker is Stephen J. Golightly, Ph.D., County Child Support Service Department Director. Please welcome Stephen.
Good morning. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, picture this, similar to what Jennifer started with. Two parents, never married. Dad is not on the birth certificate, and he's not employed, and he insists that he's not the father. Mom is working part-time, but needs assistance to make ends meet. This is not an unusual case for the child support program. We work with complex family dynamics and their financial well-being every day. As the largest local child support program in the nation, the Los Angeles County Child Support Services Department handles 300,000 cases with 1,500 staff. Our frontline case managers, also known as child support officers, have managed in the past as many as 2,500 cases each. Each caseload before this initiative contained a wide variety of case types. We assigned cases randomly based upon the last digit of the case number. Cases and caseloads varied widely, and not surprisingly, they were different, and some were more complex than others. Some paid all the time, some paid occasionally, some never paid. Some had huge past due balances, known as arrearages. Some had zero orders and needed modifications. Some non-custodial parents were in jail, while others were working in the underground economy. Some case participants came into our offices regularly to talk to their case manager about their case. Many called their case managers every day to ask questions like, when am I going to get a check? Or why are you taking so much money out of my check? So imagine a Star Wars scenario, if you will, with hundreds of spaceships moving around the galaxy. That's what a typical child support officer's caseload looked like until we transformed the way that we manage cases and ended up turning our day-to-day operations in the LA County Child Support Services program literally upside down. We began by looking at case segmentation, pulling approximately 9,000 cases that hadn't paid in over a year. We attempted to experiment with isolating and focusing efforts just on that one type of case, technically referred to as arrears only. I should point out that we randomly selected these cases. We gave 6 caseworkers 1,500 cases each and asked them to focus all of their attention and energies on those cases in an attempt to obviously generate payments. As a result, we saw a level of impact almost immediately. We now estimate that we'll receive over $2 million on those cases this year alone for the 12-month period ending in May. This is $2 million that we would not have collected otherwise. The experiment worked. When we asked our workers how they did it, they said because they were able to focus and not be all over the board with a variety of caseload types. Knowing that we were onto something, we developed a team and utilized a sophisticated prediction modeling software focused on identifying tailored strategies to manage cases. This turned into a predictive analytic model to forecast outcomes of events. We now have achieved a 90% confidence level using demographic and economic variables in our model. When case information is entered into the modeling software, a score is generated. We then translate that score into one of 4 outcome quadrants: paying, occasionally paying, never paying, and zero orders. All of our enforcement cases are now handled by caseworkers involved in only one of those quadrants. Employees got to choose which quadrant they wanted to work in, such as based upon their particular preferences and interest. The never pay cases, for instance, have a shorter and a smaller caseload size. The always pay have a higher caseload size. We call this a caseload equity formula. We have high expectations for increasing collections this year. That's real money that's going to go to real families. We've been collecting about $450 million a year. This year we estimate that figure will be in the neighborhood of $500 million based upon experiences that we've seen and results thus far. I believe that applying a predictive analytic model, a predictive analytical lens, if you will, could have broad applicability across the entire spectrum of human service programs and organizations, from welfare to work to job training services. If we can better understand the characteristics and the motivations of different customer types, we can then more effectively and quickly tailor our services to those individuals.
Thank you, Doctor. The first question I have is regarding your workforce. I think it's intriguing that you trying to allow your employees to choose based on their level of interest. I guess I'd like to know, based on feedback from your employees, how important was that? And then secondly, did you have any issues with the labor organizations that represent those employees in terms of workload fairness?
Big issue with organized labor. We started our discussions very early with the two major unions that represent our 1,500 employees and got them to buy into the fact that some cases were more complex and difficult than others. And it wasn't really fair or just or equitable that Johnny should have the same number of cases as Mary if in fact Johnny has cases that are all never paying, for instance. So we got that buy-in on this caseload equity concept, workload equity concept really early on. With the workers, when we looked at our 4 quadrants, we know that some employees like to do detective work behind the scenes, looking on the computer, looking at the 3 screens, trying to find people, more so than individuals who like to do face-to-face activity. So we let them choose based upon that. The ones that were never paying, for instance, you needed to have a hard touch, if you will, really trying to get individuals to pay. The others that are paying and they miss a payment, you need some facial interaction and telephone contact. They tell us now that they really enjoy what they're doing because they get to focus what they like to do every day on a caseload that requires those skills.
Perfect.
So I'm curious, were there more detectives than there were front door people?
No, we had a mix across the board. Not surprisingly, as a social service agency, a lot of our staff are people persons, if you will, people that like to interact, talk to individuals, see them across the table. There were more of those than there were the behind the scenes. Just put me in the back room and give me 2 computers and let me find where Johnny is.
Sure. I guess growing up in the military, we were always taught to, cross-train in so many different areas, and this is kind of a step away from cross-training. I'm curious, how do you keep your case managers at the appropriate levels?
Well, it's an interesting question because we've just started this in the last year. We've brought together now, we've created teams of like types, if you will. So all of the supervisors in the department that handle the arrears-only cases are now coming together once a month to share strategies and best practices and ideas they're getting from their staff. At the end of the federal fiscal year, when we do all of our marks, the end of September, we'll give folks an opportunity, if they want at that time, to move to a different quadrant. Personally, I don't expect that's going to be wholesale. I think it'll be just a few people.
Can I add one more
Dr.
follow-up?
Helm? Did you have another?
Yeah, just one.
Yeah,
Actually, as a new employee, how does a new employee select which caseload they're going to
Well,
take?
we kind of solved that because we put all of our new employees in the call center. And they have to stay there for at least a year. So they handle all the cases in the calls.
Fair enough.
We have about 3,000 calls a day coming into the call center. So that's how we solve that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Doctor, how many employees do you have total in the 4 quadrants?
In the 4 quadrants, probably about 800.
800, okay. And when you were putting together the predictive analytical model that you chose, did you involve the caseworkers, the social workers, in putting that model together? And if so, how did you go about that?
Well, putting the actual model itself, the predictive model, no. That was very technical. In fact, Sarah's in the audience here. She's the brains behind the development of the actual model. Wave your hand, Sarah.
Yeah.
She's at the booth also. We began involving staff when we actually determined that there were 4 quadrants and what we thought they should be. We started with line staff, moved up to supervisors, senior management staff, and then my executive team. And the union. So by the time we implemented last year, we'd covered all of those bases. Very important to me.
Yeah, indeed. Okay.
One more?
One more?
Oh, of course.
So I noticed that you had some of your best results percentage-wise in reducing the non-paying cases, 15% reduction in that area. To what do you attribute the particular success in addressing that particularly difficult segment?
Back to Diane's point about the detective work, we find that the staff that are working on arrears only are in fact those types of individuals. They love doing the research. In child support, we have access to almost every database you can imagine, from IRS and through the correction system across the nation, EDD, workforce development. In the past, if you have 2,500 cases and you have a case that's not paying, you probably don't spend as much time on that as you do with the cases that are paying. Now we're saying, just do that and use all these tools, and we found that the non-custodial parent, sometimes mom, sometimes dad, were in fact working, did in fact have assets.
Great. One more, I'm sorry, I know I'm over time. One more follow-up. Have you shared this idea with your colleagues in the other departments in Los Angeles County?
We're leading. There are 39 departments in Los Angeles County government. As you know, we have 105,000 employees. Open data is very important to our Board of Supervisors, so we're leading the pack in LA County with sharing what we're doing and with our colleagues, and across the nation in child support also, I might add.
Terrific. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very
Great
much.
presentation.
Warm round of applause for Dr. Golightly, please. Thank you very much.